made available to you.
Yes, Your Honor.
It was, Your Honor.
And Ms. Robinson, do you have any of the victim's family that wish to address the court before sentencing?
Yes, Your Honor. I have the victim's mother and father who are here, and I am stating this will address them.
Okay. Who would like to go first?
Mr. Dominic Dykstra.
All right. You're Dominic Dykstra.
Yes, sir.
Could you spell your first and last for the court reporter, please?
D-O-M-Y-N-I-C. Dykstra is D-Y-K-S-T-R.
All right. And now is your opportunity to tell the court what you would like to tell me before I impose sentence.
Okay. I know this wasn't done maliciously, but neither is an incident between a drunk driver and an innocent life. It's the action of you, Carl Robart, and your wife that allowed this to happen. Owning firearms comes with a great responsibility. Common sense tells you if you have guns in your room, don't let children in there. Seeming you have 3 children that live in that home, you would think you would have some sort of common sense, but I guess it's not so common anymore, is it? The 4 firearms that were found in your room and your wife's bedroom should have never been in the reach of children, let alone 2 loaded guns. When police asked where you kept the ammo, you said all over. Not only did the irresponsibility and negligence of every adult that lives in that home destroy my life, it destroyed your daughter's too. It destroyed our family, not just ours, the other grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. It destroyed a little 8-year-old girl's life, Braxton's big sister. She has to live every day knowing what happened when the gunshot went off. She will always remember that day, probably thinking to herself, what if she was faster to get up and get help? The innocence in her eyes is gone. She will never be the same after this horrible tragedy we all are living through. Grandparents are supposed to keep their grandbabies safe. No one in that household did that day. Instead, 3 little innocent children were put in danger the moment you all allowed them to step foot in that room. A little boy who had so much love for everyone and everything is now gone. The people we thought we could trust with their kids failed. I will never get to hug my son again. I'll never get to hear his precious voice or his silly laugh. I will never get those warm welcome home hugs when I get home from work ever again. It's obvious everything I say or do will never bring my baby boy back. Nothing ever will. My little boy lost about 80 years of his life due to negligence and irresponsibility of a gun owner. No matter how much time you get, it'll never be enough. That's it, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I think that's going to be it, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Greer, have you had the opportunity to read the report and discuss it with Mr. Robart?
Here I have, Your Honor.
Do you have any additions, corrections, or challenges?
Your Honor, no, Your Honor, I don't.
Is there anything that you would like the court to consider before the court imposes sentence?
Yes, Your Honor. First of all, my client's health, I think, was minimized a little in the report. He suffers from joint degeneration of the spine, knees, and shoulders. He suffers from leukemia. His prostate cancer is in remission. And he suffers from nodules on the lungs, which are being monitored to determine if they become cancerous.
Do you want that added to the report as updated medical information?
It could be, Your Honor. It was fairly brief as to his physical problems, so I think it could be, Your Honor.
All right, we'll take that as additional information.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, also on page 1 of the pre-sentence, not the cover page, but actually it's the first page 1 on Department of Corrections, pre-sentence investigation, evaluation, and plan. It'd be the 3rd page of the packet. It says in the 5th paragraph, it says that the father or the defendant takes no responsibility for this instant offense. And Your Honor, I disagree with that statement. He came in, he pled. He's some of the things he says may try to deflect a little bit of the responsibility, but the long and short of it is that he came in, he pled. He's going to testify because he's adamant that his wife, the child's grandmother, had nothing to do with this, and he's going to tell that to the jury in her case. He's responsible for this. He said he's responsible for this. His grandchild will still be alive if he'd have paid more attention. He has to live with this, not only with the fact of the responsibility, but also with the fact of the loss of his child. He's not going to be able to see any of that stuff, enjoy any of that anymore either. And he knows. It's very difficult for him to wake up and face this. And, you heard the child's father. My client feels the same thing. Other than the fact that, the responsibility of it. This law was just enacted a couple of weeks before this charge, and there's a reason for it. And this is it. This is the reason for it. And, I've known Carl. His parents were friends of mine. I've known Carl since he was a little kid. And, he's got a couple of minor scrapes with the law when he was younger, but nothing, for the last 24 years. Why? I think he might have an impaired driving. Other than that, nothing. He was minding his own business, doing what he had to do, raise his family, and it hasn't been easy for him. He's in severe physical health problems, but he's here today, Your Honor. He's here to take the responsibility. He's here to give you what the court deems necessary. But, he wants everybody to know that he is extremely sorry for this whole situation, and he is not shirking his responsibility in this at all. He lost his grandchild, his wife. They haven't been able to visit the other grandchildren, and it's a nightmare. It is a nightmare that this whole family, not just Carl and his wife, but the parents, those grandparents, it's just a nightmare what has happened. And, there's a reason for it. That's why they enacted the law. So, I guess whatever punishment you give him is just, that's what he said, just, give it to me. That's his life, as well as the grandchild's, is pretty much over. With his health problems, I'm not sure he's going to get out of prison, but he is not taking this lightly. There isn't a day goes by where she had that moment back. That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Robart, have you had the opportunity to read the report and discuss it with Mr. Greer?
I have.
Do you have any additions, corrections, or challenges other than the ones that were raised by Mr. Greer?
No.
Is there anything that you want the court to consider? Anything that you want to say for yourself?
Well, Your Honor, there's a lot of things I could say. But it's not going to change what happened. My daughter knows how much I love her and I'm bitter. And if I survive this, I'm going to do everything I can in my life to continue to support her and her children. That's all I can say.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Robinson, any additions, corrections, or challenges?
No, Your Honor.
Is there anything that you want the court to consider before the court imposes a sentence?
Your Honor, I know the court is aware, but I will just repeat what has already been said today. We know this is not a malicious crime. We know this is a tragedy. I think nightmare is an appropriate word, but it is a nightmare that was 100% preventable. It was preventable if the adults in the home, in this case the defendant, had taken the steps necessary to protect the children that were in that home. The law in the state, we've chosen to hold people accountable for that negligence. It doesn't require maliciousness. We are holding the adults responsible for the deaths of the children that should have never had access to these guns, especially loaded guns in the first place. We believe that the recommendation in the PSI is appropriate, and we would ask the court to sentence within guidelines pursuant to the plea agreement, with the understanding that people take this very seriously and that we recognize that this was not something that had to happen. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. The court recognizes that the advisory guidelines would suggest a sentence between 19 months to 38 months on the minimum. The maximum is set by statute at 15 years. The courts can exercise my discretion and sentence consent with the advisory guidelines consistent with the plea agreement in this case. It would be the sentence of the court that this defendant serve 38 months on the minimum to a maximum of 15 years with the Michigan Department of Corrections. I'll give him credit for the 30 days that he's served so far. And Mr. Robart, there are some common themes that people have raised here today that certainly share my thoughts in this case. But this tragedy was 100% avoidable. All you had to do was listen to the people in your life that were telling you to put these loaded guns away. And you didn't. The safe storage law received a tremendous amount of attention in Michigan, but we don't need a law to say that it's not safe to have guns loaded or unloaded where they're readily available to children. The pre-sentence investigation report reflects that family members warned you several months to put them away, and you did not, nor did any other adult that was in the house. Your failure to take the most simple safety precautions changed the lives of so many people. The obvious ones are the parents' family, friends, relatives, but we can't overlook what the young man that actually fired the shot, 6 years old, saw what happened. He has to live with that every single day. I can't imagine him going to school. At some point, people are going to know he's the kid that shot somebody, and he's probably going to get teased about it. And then you've got the girl that was there that saw it. She too. Those things are things that no kid should see. They can't unsee those things. Then I think about your wife that was trying to give CPR to the victim, but there's no delicate way to say it. The damages were so bad, she couldn't find his mouth to breathe into. This case, I know, was not easy for law enforcement. I know that several people on the scene, they're haunted by the sight that they saw. It's something that they can't get over. It's something that they can't unsee. And it's something that they shouldn't have to carry either. Your attorney wants this court to believe that you take responsibility for this, but I don't see that. from your statement that you made in the pre-sentence report, that weapon was not loaded when I put it behind the door. The only reason it was loaded was because of the threats against my family. Now, I own guns, I own shotguns. I can't see how a 6-year-old boy with no experience with guns could, number one, find ammunition that was supposedly hidden. Number two, try and figure out how to load a shell into this Remington 870 shotgun, especially since you said that the safety was on. Would have to take the safety off, would have to move the slide forward, would have to feed a shell into the bottom, push it forward till it clicks, and then activate the slide. All those things don't seem possible to me, and they fly in the face of logic. Leads the court to the only conclusion that you left this gun loaded, you knew it was loaded, and all this stuff about it couldn't have been loaded, it had to be unloaded, that's all you trying to minimize or trying to get yourself out of this situation or have you live with yourself. That gun was loaded and you knew it was. So I don't see that you take any responsibility for what happened here. And it's for those reasons that the court has imposed the maximum sentence that I can under these advisory guidelines. The court would direct that your financial assessments would be collected through the inmate account and parole process. You do have the right to make application for leave to appeal your conviction sentence. If you cannot afford an attorney, the court appoint an attorney to represent you on the appeal. The request for a lawyer must be filed with the court within 42 days. You need to go with Deputy Hermans.
All right. Yes, please.
We can take a short recess if the media wants to retrieve the recording devices.